everyone, we are from Group 2. First, let me introduce all of my group members. There are 5 members in our group, which are YING, HARMILA, WATCHALEEN, Roshini, and Tosuda. Today, we are going to present Marx's law of motions of capitalism and briefly compare that theory with the theory of economic development by Adam Smith. Without further ado, let's get started with our topic.
My name is YING with number metric 2X6652. I would like to present the theory of history based on Karl Marx's perspective. Karl Marx saw that the society has included 6 stages of social development. However, the changes in a society development happens between the bourgeois and proletariat. The class conflict happens is due to the oppressing class and the oppressed class. Firstly, I will define what is a bourgeois and proletariat. Bourgeois means the capitalist class who have their own and control the production, such as a factory, machines, and land. They also control the distribution and exchange of goods and services and extract profit from the labor of the proletariat. Well, the proletariat refers to the working class who do not have their own production and have to sell the labor power to the bourgeois in order to survive. Oppressing class. Oppressing class is a social group that hold power and privilege in a society and use their power to maintain its dominance over other groups. While the oppressed class is a social group that lack power and systematically disadvantaged and exploited by the oppressor class. So, it clearly shows that this group may experience the discrimination, poverty, and other forms of social and economic injustice. So, I will talk about we have 6 stages of social development. First is primitive communism. So this was the earliest stage of human society, and they are characterized by a communal ownership of property and the absence of the social classes. Karl Marx believed that this stage is existent during the prehistoric times. So move to the next stage, which is slavery. Slavery is a society which they are characterized by the existence of slavery and slave class being exploited by the ruling class. And feudalism, who control land and the means of production. So serfs and peasants worked the land for the ruling class and were exploited through a system of feudal obligations. Okay, third stage is capitalism. Capitalism in this stage, the society is characterized by the dominance of the bourgeois or capitalist class. They have their own productions and exploit the working class for their own profits. Okay, so move to the fourth stage, which is socialism. Socialism is socialist society and their production are collectively owned and controlled by the working class. So in a socialist society, there is no exploitations and all members of society have equal access to the resources. Last stage is communism. So there is no state, no class distinctions, and no need for money or private property. So in a communist society, all members of society work for the common good and services. Okay, let's move to the next slide. So it is a law of motion of capitalism. So there have 9 important interrelated concepts in the law of motion. The 9 important interrelated concepts in the law of motion of capitalism will provide a framework for understanding how the capitalist economic system operates and the contribution of conflicts that arise within it. Okay, so first part is a labor theory of value, And second part is story of exploitation, capital accumulations, falling rate of profit, business cycle, technology unemployment, centralization of capital and concentration of wealth, reserve army of the unemployed, and inflationization of the float rate. And last part is class conflict. So it were presented by the next presenter.
Assalamualaikum. My name is HARMILA binti ADZHAR. My matric number is 284446. I will continue the presentation with the labor theory of value. In labor theory of value, Marx defined commodity as something created for commercial gain that may fulfill human needs. The item may fulfill needs either directly as a means of sustaining life or indirectly as a means of manufacturing. A commodity has trade value, which is frequently referred to as value. So, what factors define a commodity's worth in this case? Marx's essential response is the socially necessary labor time, or SNLT, that is embodied in the good or service, taking into account the typically production conditions and the typical skills and intensity of labor at the period. SNLT covers the value added to the commodity during this process as well as the direct labor involved in creating the commodity. It also includes the labor that is embedded in the equipment and raw materials that are consumed during production. Let us give you an example that might help you to understand better. Let's say a pair of shoes requires 10 hours of labor on average. The cost of this typical socially essential labor establishes the shoe's value. Even if a worker is inefficient or lazy and creates a pair of shoes in 20 hours, it is still only worth 10 hours. If a worker or employer leads the industry in efficiency and technology, and a pair of shoes is created in 5 hours of work, their value is still 10 hours. The average labor cost for society as a whole, or the amount of time that is socially necessary to manufacture that pair of shoes. The worth of a product is expressed in units of simple average labor. Multiple units of unskilled labor are counted for skilled work. Therefore, 1 hour of an engineer's productive work could add as much value to a good as 5 hours of labor. The labor time required by workers with various levels of expertise is equalized by the market to one level of unskilled labor. The prices that are based on the underlying labor costs are also decided by the market. In this presentation, I will further explain about the theory of exploitation. In theory of exploitation, there are 4 elements that we are going to cover in this presentation, which is labor power versus labor time, surplus value, the rate of surplus value, and the rate of profit. First, let us see the definition of exploitation. Basically, exploitation is an action of trading someone unfairly in order to gain benefit from their work. In this theory, profit is the result of exploitation. According to Marx, capitalists receive profit by purchasing the one commodity that can create a value greater than its own. Here, the term of commodity refer to the labor power. Next, the theory of value claims that the value is intrinsic in a product according to the amount of labor that has been spent on producing the product. Moving on to the next slide, let us differentiate the difference between labor power and labor time. Labor power refers to the person's ability to work and produce commodities. As I mentioned before, labor power is a commodity that can be purchased and sold in the market. It is what the capitalist needs to make profit. As for labor time, it refers to the actual process and duration of work. Labor time considering regular circumstances of production, average skill, and intensity of labor at the time. Direct labor is included in producing the commodity. Moving on to the next slide. What determines the value of labor power? The answer according to Marx, the SNLT, which stands for Socially Necessary Labour Time, required to produce the cultural necessities of life consumed by the workers. For example, if the necessities needs to be produced in 4 hours per day, the value of commodity labour power is 4 hours of labour time per day. If the productivity of labour double, so that the articles of subsistence could be produced in 2 hours per day, the value of labour power would fall for 50%. There are two important points that need to emphasize here. First, employers pay wage to workers equivalent to the workers' labour power, which is they pay the going market wage. So that means market wage is equal to labour power is equal also to the SNLT. The second one is this market wage is sufficient only to purchase the cultural subsistence required for survival and perpetuation of the labour force.
So I will continue with the surplus value. So surplus value, according to Marx's theory, is a theory of exploitation in a capitalist economy. So according to the Karl Marx, the workers are only able to sell the labor power in exchange for the wages. So the value of the labor power is determined by the cost of the goods and services needed to reproduce their labor, such as food, goods and services. Okay. So however, during the course of a workday, workers typically produce more value than what is required to reproduce their labor power. So this means its excess value is referred to as a surplus value. So this surplus value is appropriated by the capitalist who owns the means of production and who use it to accumulate wealth and expand the business. So Marx argued that this system of exploitation is inherent to capitalism, so as it is driven by the pursuit of profit and the accumulation of capitals. So workers are forced to sell their labor power in order to survive, while capitalists seek to extract as much surplus value as possible from the labor. So this creates a fundamental conflict of interest between the working class and the capitalist class, which Marx believed that will ultimately lead to the overthrow of capitalism and the establishment of a socialist or communist society. So let's make a simple summary about the surplus value. So surplus exploitation of workers will not occur when the labor time equal to the labor power, but the exploitation of labor will arise when the worker produce more in a day than they must consume. Okay, for example, the labor time over the labor power. So employer will pay the full market value for the workers. In this example, the worker is employed by the capitalist to convert raw cotton into yarn using a supply machine. So if the worker labor expected work for 6 hours, so they are paid the market value of the labor power, which is $3. Okay, so in this case, there is no exploitation of the worker happen. Okay, because labor time equal to the labor power. However, if the capitalist forced to work additional 6 hours, 7 to 12 hours, okay, the worker will produce a surplus value of $3. So since they are not compensated for the extra labor time, this surplus value is appropriate by the capitalist who can use it to expand the business or accumulate wealth. Okay, if the capitalist forced again to work additional hours from 13 to 18 hours, so they will continue to extract surplus value and accumulate more profits again. However, this will come at the cost of the workers' well-being and could lead to exploitation from the labor process. So let's look at the next slide. Here have the formula for the rate of surplus value. So the formula for the rate of surplus value is unpaid labor time divided by the paid labor time and times 100. Let's take an example from the previous slide, 7 hours to 12 hours. So the worker forced to work additional 6 hours, so they were paid by $3. So unpaid labor time, okay, unpaid labor time is 3 divided by the paid labor time is 3, so times 100 equal to 100%. Okay, so another example is if the worker forced to work again for 6 additional time, okay, 6 hours. So hours from 30 to 18 hours. So 3 plus 3 divided by 3 times 100. So equal to 200%. The next slide is the formula for the rate of profit formula. So this is a formula. Okay, surplus value, okay, divided by the cost and times 100. Okay, or P equal S divided by C plus B. So this is a ratio for surplus value of the total capital invested. Okay, so this is the table. Okay, you can see that 1 to 6 hours total cost of production is 50, and 7 to 12 hours the total cost of production is 12, and same goes with 13 to 80 hours is 12 also. Okay, so when you know, okay, how much the total cost of production for 12 hours, you can calculate the rate of profit. Okay, so surplus value also, okay, you also know how to get it from the previous slide. Okay, the rate of profit here. Okay, the question asks you, how much the rate of profit for 12 hours? So you can know the surplus value for the 12 hours is 3 and divide by 27 and times 100. So you can get the answer is 11.1%. So same goes with the besides question, okay? If the question asks you how much the rate of profit for the production 18 hours, so surplus value for the 18th hour is 3 plus 3, you will get the surplus value is 6. So divide by 39 ringgit and times 100. So you will get the answer is 50.4%. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Next, I will present about the capital accumulation, which Marx believed that capital accumulation will bring negative effect. Capital accumulation refer to an increase in asset from investment or profit and is one of the building blocks of a capitalist economy. According to Marx's law of motion theory, capital accumulation will cause a falling rate of profit, business crisis, and technological unemployment. Next, I will explain about the falling rate of profit. According to Marx, the rate of profit received by capitalists in the equation that have been presented by my groupmate before will tend to fall over the long run. The reason is the drive toward increasing efficiency through mechanization and labor-saving intention. The term mechanization here meaning that to improve productivity by using machinery, while labor saving intention meaning that labor is replaced with machine. This will raises the organic composition of capital. The equation is shown here as Q. Notice that this is a ratio of constant capital to the total capital. The alternative profit rate equation can be derived from rate of profit equation and the organic composition of capital equation. This new equation indicates that the rate of profit varies directly with rate of surplus value and inversely with the organic composition of capital. Therefore, if the capitalist invests more on machinery and less on labor, rate of profit will decrease and the organic composition of capital will increase. Did you know why do capitalists still use machinery rather than labor? There are two reasons. First is the enterprise that lead in promoting efficient production through the use of more and better constant capital will temporarily receive extra profit by lowering its cost of production. Because they use more machinery, the cost of production will decrease. When the product price fall, the firm who cannot compete will leave the market. Second, the greater the efficiency of production, the lower the value of labor power. The number of hours required to produce subsistence will less create and more total amount of profit produced per working day. Next, I will explain about offsetting forces to the falling rate of profit. First, the intensity of exploitation can be raised by forcing the workers to increase their pace of work or by lengthening their working day. Second, wages temporarily may be cut below their value. Third, the constant capital may be cheapened. The ratio of constant capital to labor is a value relationship, and as machinery and raw materials become cheaper, the rise in the organic composition of capital and the fall in the rate of profit both become slower. Fourth, growing population in relation to job and increasing technological unemployment are conducive to setting up new industries that use much labor and little capital. The high rates of profit in such industry enter into the average rate of profit for the system as a whole. Next, foreign trade raises the rate of profit by cheapening the elements of both constant capital and the necessities of life. In addition, capital invested in colonies yields higher rates of profit because the ratio of constant to variable capital is lower and because the exploitation of colonial workers is more intense than the exploitation of wage labor at home. Finally, the rate of exploitation is increased by reducing the value of labor power through increased efficiency of production. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashwatha Roshini, metric number 285637. I will explain about the business crisis. According to Mark, business crisis is one of the insoluble problems of capital accumulation, besides of the falling rate of profit problem. Marx attacks Say's law by stating that Say's law is one of the best applied to simple commodity production. The process of exchange by Say's law is as you can see on the slide CMC. Small self-employed artisan generate commodities in order to trap them for goods they want to consume. The lion weaver sells his goods and use the money to purchase food. So the process can be represented by CMC. The C represents the commodities linen and the food, while the M is the medium of exchange, which is money. Then the process of exchange will become MCM under scale capitalist production. In the large scale of capitalist of production, the process exchange become MCM, where people buy in order to sell, instead selling in order to buy. Money change into commodity such as labor power, raw material and machinery. The product are then sold for money. Actually, this process doesn't make sense, hence Marx extend the process of exchange, where the two M are equal. Therefore, the make sense one are shown on the slide, which is MCM M prime, where M prime is larger than the normal M due to the amount of surplus value extract from the productive worker. This is a process of expanding investment from capital accumulation. Next, I will present about the business cycle, where probably everyone is familiar with it. So rapid investment is a capital and labor temporary increase the demand for labor and increase the wage that capitalists must pay, but the higher wage reduce the rate of surplus value and profit, ending the extension and sending the economy in the opposite direction. The depression that result destroy the monetary value of fifth capital and enabling the larger capitals to buy up smaller ones at bargain price. Also, some factories close, prices of commodities fall, credit contracts and wages fall. The rate of surplus value and profit doesn't get restored and investment increases once again and next.
Hi everyone, my name is Tosuda GOUTOMOH. My metric number is 286644. I would like to present about the third effects of capital accumulation, which is technological unemployment. So from this, it will cause rate of unemployment increases. This is due to usage of machines, robots and technologies increases. In former times, the labor owned the tools they worked with, but nowadays capital owns the machines. So this cause labor is substituted with capital. Mechanized industries using much capital and little labor have at least as high a rate of profit as industries using little capital and much labor. Moreover, we can see that greater the efficiency of production, the lower the value of labor power, number of hours required to produce the subsistence and greater the total amount of produced profit per working day. So the substitution of capital for labor as a second effect, which is the size of the industrial reserve army of the unemployed rises. Moreover, workers are thrown out of work by machinery, or stated in contemporary terms become technologically unemployed. The fourth effect of capital accumulation is the centralization of capital and concentration of wealth. We can see capital grows in one place to a huge mass because it has in another place been lost by many. The battle of competition is fought by cheapening of commodities. The cheapness of commodities depends on ceteris paribus, on the productiveness of labor, and this again on the scale of production. Therefore, the larger capitals beat the smaller. It will further be remembered that with the development of the capitalized mode of production, there is an increase in the minimum amount of individual capital necessary to carry on a business under its normal conditions. The smaller capitals therefore crowd into space of production that modern industry has only sporadically or incompletely gotten hold of. Here, competition rages in direct proportion to the number and in inverse proportion to the magnitudes of the antagonistic capitals. It always ends in the run of many small capitalists whose capitals partly pass into the hand of their conquerors and partly vanish. So this caused the larger firms able to obtain economies of scale and produce at lower average cost as compared to smaller firms. The elimination of the smaller firms and the growth of monopoly firms occurs when there is competition between the larger, lower-cost firm and the smaller firms. This causes the dynamics of capital accumulation and the tendency for recurring business crises, centralize the ownership of capital and concentrate wealth with fewer hands.
Hi everyone, first let me introduce myself. My name is WATCHALEEN and my metric number is 2x5706. I am currently in semester 4 and I am from group 2. I will continue the presentations with the reserve army of the unemployed and immiserizations of the proletariat. According to Karl Marx, the wages paid to the workers tend towards cultural subsistence because of the presence of a large reserve army of the unemployed. The worker is forced to work sufficiently long to create a surplus value for the capitalist. So, because of the falling rate of profit business crisis and technological unemployment, the size of the industrial reserve army of the unemployed increased. Without further ado, let's start our discussion about our today's topic, and our topic is class conflict theory. So first of all, I will discuss briefly the concept of conflict theory. Conflict theory, given by Karl Marx, depicts that there exists a struggle because of limited resources and unlimited utilities of resources. The concentrations of wealth among fewer and fewer capitalists, as well as the absolute and relative impoverishment of the workers, leads to class conflicts. This implies that those who have resources and wealth will protect them. In contrast, those who lack resources will strive to obtain them. The possessors may even accumulate the resources to gain benefit from them. This gives rise to the concept of rich and poor. Also, it explains the ever-going struggle of the proletariat. The exploitations of workers by the capitalists was eliminated. As a result, capitalism is replaced by socialism. Conflict may occur wherever there is a difference in opinions, wants, wills, needs, or when two or more people want the same indivisible thing. Conflict theories studies any social phenomenon with the perspective that it is in the nature of humans to have conflict. Marx does not say conflict is bad or good. He refers to the conflicts to be unavoidable aspect and helps explain why things are the way things are. Besides that, conflict theory also explains any injustice or discriminations of caste, creed, race, and so on. It explains that wars, wealth, and poverty fights, violence are the result of disparities in society. Many developments in the economy or human history are based on or can be explained through conflict theory, such as the formations of civil rights, the concepts of democracy, capitalism, and so on. An example of class conflict is the conflict between owner of businesses and employees. Is such that owner want more profit, which means less distributions of surplus to employees. On the other hand, employees want more salaries for themselves. This gives rise to strike, dispute, and so on. Therefore, Marx divided the class into two major groups. Each group consists of a group of people having mutual interests and a similar degree of ownership of resources. This makes classes different from each other and homogeneous within the particular class. The two main classes are the bourgeoisie and the proletariat. For bourgeoisie, they are members of society holding a maximum of wealth and means. This is minority and uses their power to dominate others. Hence, They are the influencers in society. For proletariat means the working class or poor constitute the proletariat, and this is in mass. Thank you.
I will present about the consequences of capital accumulation. In this part, Toshida and I will explain the comparison of law of motion and theory of economic development. I will present about economic development. So first of all, I would like to introduce about Adam Smith. He was a philosopher and economist who called as the father of modern economics. He viewed the economy as a whole and emphasized growth and economic development. This diagram summarizes the elements which represent Smith's theory of economic thought. As you guys can see the top two boxes that Smith viewed the division of labor and the accumulation of capital as the primary factors as tools help to grow the nation's wealth. The arrow A connects the two boxes. This is because Smith found out that the division of labor makes possible to increase people's productivity by introducing the machine. But somehow Smith failed to prove that new technology because it's complicated. As an example, individual worker able to produce a pair of shoe, but there is no machine that able to do that work. That is why arrow A points only in one arrow. Moreover, Smith also believed the specialization and the division of labor increase productivity, which represent arrow B and C, and also increase the national output, which is arrow D. This is because Smith argued that specialization in a particular task, workers will become more efficient, focused and productive. That will lead to economic growth in positive way. Greater national outputs make it possible to for consumer to consume more goods and services. And Smith believed increased wealth of the nation will happen, which you can see the arrow E. It also widens the market and justify further division of labor and capital accumulation by arrow F. Next, capital accumulation enlarge the wages fund. From Smith's opinion, when increase in wages fund exceeds the increase in the number of laborers, the average wages will rise. You can see the arrow G and H. Lastly, the higher wages will enhance health and energy of the workforce, further increase their productivity, as you can see in arrow I. Okay, if you guys realize the cycle of events promoting economic growth, then it repeats itself. As you can see, when productivity increase, the national output increases and increase the wealth of nation, which shown by arrow E. As a conclusion on the accumulation of capital, Adam Smith thought that accumulating capital would have positive effects because the division of labor will encourage capital accumulation, which will boost labor productivity. The production of the country will also increase. Additionally, he contended that capital accumulation enabled companies to hire more staff, resulting in greater job prospect and higher earnings. The increases in goods and services available for consumption as a result of the increase in national output that makes country wealthier. In summary, Adam Smith thought that capital accumulation offered numerous advantages for our society as a whole and was necessary for economic progress and development. He considered it's a way to boost output, generate employment, raise wages, and raise people's standards of living. Thank you. That's all from me.
As we can see from the diagram below, here the short summary of the law of motion of capitalism by Karl Marx. According to Marx, because labor is the source of all value, surplus value and profit arise through exploitation of workers in Aero A. This will cause competition among capitalists, results in capital accumulation in Aero B, which causes a falling rate of profit, business crisis, and technological unemployment in Aero C, D, and E. These outcomes produce centralization of capital and concentration of wealth in Aero F and G, as well as rising unemployment and poverty in Aero H, I, and J. Next, in addition, the polarization of capitalists and workers leads to class conflicts in Aero K and L, and the overthrow of capitalism. At the end, the exploitation of workers by the capitalists were eliminated. So, this will be replaced capitalism into socialism. As the conclusion, compared to Adam Smith, the theory of economic, Karl Marx believed that capital accumulation will bring negative effects. According to Karl Marx, law of motion theory, capital accumulation will bring negative effects, where the capital accumulation will cause a falling rate of profit, business crisis, and technological unemployment. The growth of capital at a rate faster than labor. Specifically, new technology F increase the productivity of capital, offsetting the tendency of the rate of profit to fall. Rapid expansion of capital can lead to overcapacity, followed by excessive inventories, curtailments of production, and increases in unemployment. These outcomes produce centralization of capital and concentration of wealth, as well as rising unemployment and poverty. So, at the end, the polarization of capitalists and workers leads to class conflict and the collapse of capitalism. So, this may cause the capitalism to be replaced to socialism. So, that's all from us. Thank you for watching.